Up next, we'll be exploring the journey of Abhay Rangan, the founder of Goodmylk. Abhay Rangan has been a champion of animal rights in India since the age of 16. After running a successful non-profit focused on veganism throughout his teen years, he launched Goodmylk in 2016 with a mission of making affordable, cruelty-free dairy alternatives. Rangan originally created each Goodmylk product with his mother in their home kitchen, but their plant-based foods now reach thousands of families across the country. Abhay carries the distinction of having made the Forbes 30 under 30 list twice. He was India's first vegan entrepreneur to do so. Abhay will be sharing his journey and the bright idea that sparked the thought behind Goodmylk, how he wishes to scale his business, and his advice for others who'd like to bolster their vegan businesses. Over to you, Abhay.
Thanks so much for the kind words, Sanjana. Really excited to be here. My journey started out as a vegan. It's been, I think since Jan 1st, it's been like 11 years since I've been vegan, right? And my parents have been vegan for like 12 years almost. And so it's been like more than half my life has been involved in this movement, and started out as an activist pretty early on. I did a lot of animal rights awareness campaigns. It's sort of when you turn vegan, you're like, everybody should know about this. And you feel like you've been lied to by the dairy industry and so on and so on. And started doing a lot of activism work. A common criticism I faced about vegan alternatives throughout was really that plant-based alternatives are expensive. I can't really turn vegan because yada yada thing is really expensive. And it was really annoying to me because as an activist and a particularly young one at that, I wanted to be right. And this was one genuine criticism that we came across pretty often. And it's not that you need vegan alternatives to be vegan, but as someone in the movement, it may be construed as your duty to help make it easier for other people. And that was the idea of Goodmylk, right? And we weren't called Goodmylk back then; we were called Veganarchy. And the idea then was just to have one alternative that wasn't expensive. So if someone complained, oh no, veganism is expensive, you could just say, boom, here's a product that's not, now go be vegan and do your thing, right? So that's how it started. It was never meant to be a business as such. I didn't ever intend to stop doing activism. I was also trying to figure out what I would do with my career. I was like 18, 19 at that point. Having done activism for 4 or 5 years, and then trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my own life. And a lot of the confluence of what I wanted to do with my life and, in my 20s, and what I wanted to devote a significant percentage of my time, talents, energies, whatever you call it, for this movement, all of that became Goodmylk. And it sort of started at home. My mom was manufacturing products in the kitchen. I was delivering them on my bike. It was very non-scalable. I don't ever think it would become even as big as it has become today. And we just went through the motions of it. And before I knew it, got some opportunities. Did a fellowship at the Stanford Design School's University Innovation Fellows Program. Sort of really started to understand how to formalize structure, right? And at that point, I was realizing that Goodmylk was taking more and more of my time than activism was. And I felt really guilty. Oh my God, I'm like capitulating to capitalism, whatever, but really realized that an excellent way to really scale your impact and sustain it at a large scale was using the tools of business that were available to us. And it was just becoming so much easier for people like me who didn't have a business background or anything to start businesses. And now you see like plenty of plant-based companies in India, and I'm sure that's maybe a fraction of what is about to come. But it was really the idea of solving problems that vegan wannabes faced that really got me into doing Goodmylk.
That's fabulous. So you talked about this thing of how you actually began your journey. This was about starting with in the home kitchen. That's exactly how every business actually begins, and then it transitions into something which is like, okay, now we've got so much and we have to scale so quickly. How did that transition take place? Where you said that, okay, instead of selling it out from my kitchen and it's getting bigger, I'm talking about the attention that you received, where you felt like, okay, it's time for me to make this bigger. Okay, and how did that happen? So
that's a really good question. I don't know if there's a direct answer to that, right? But maybe I'll take it from a couple of lenses. I think from an emotional lens of like identifying as an activist, or then identifying as a founder first, and someone who is part of Goodmylk, etc. I think it was talking to several like very impactful activists. I would have conversations with them, just say like, hey, this is what I'm going through, and they'd say, you know what, like having a big plant-based company or being part of a movement that occupies 50% of the dairy industry, hopefully one day, right? Or 100%. That's massively impactful in its own right. A lot of people are doing work on the side of awareness and on the side of helping people want to consume more plant-based, so consume fewer animals, right? Or zero animals, hopefully. But there's also important work that needs to be done on the supply side, which is making it easier for these people to go vegan. I mean, so you and I may be motivated very much by animal rights, and temporary inconvenience is not a problem for us. But during any step along the way, if there's friction, a few people drop off. And it's human nature that our brains are lazy. We want to do the easiest thing possible. And it's important to figure out how to make veganism also the convenient thing to do, because most people will do good as long as it is convenient for them to do good. So that's how the emotional part of it sort of came along. I think the knowledge part of it, which is that hey, you got to scale at some point, and go to a factory, and then boom, when you go to a factory, everything changes, right? Because nothing tastes the same in a factory as it would taste at home. So you got to figure out that journey and figure out, maybe different tasting isn't a bad thing as long as you can make it taste better than you would at home. So just figuring those things out. I had a lot of mentors. I was very green coming into this, and I'd still say I'm learning things in many ways every day. But I just had good people around me. They'd run businesses, they'd been part of building businesses, and they were like, hey, look out for this thing, make this hire at this point of time. And very much, very spoon-fed the early part of the journey was. And but I say it with gratitude, but I also think that there's a lot of things you just got to figure out, right? Like, for example, we did our own distribution, and that was nothing nobody had an answer to. It was that maybe the answer simply was you have to go on a bike and deliver it sometimes, and there was no Dunzo or Swiggy back then, right? So it was all very much done by ourselves. People in my college helped me out. They wanted to earn a little extra income. They were helping out with deliveries. And then, before we knew it, we had enough money to make our first hire, and then sort of scaled from there. I keep joking that before our fundraise, we were profitable. And then after our fundraise, we really started burning money. And the idea was to just build a scalable, sustainable system where the immediate priority is not necessarily that you're making money on every transaction or you're making money as a company, but really that your customer is happy. And that is something we're still figuring out today. But I think we've gotten further along the way about figuring out how to make our customers happy with what they're ordering, right? It is not just about the product. It is about the packaging experience, about the distribution experience. It's about the customer support experience. What to do when things go wrong, really important, because things will go wrong. Just putting all those pieces into the puzzle was very helpful. I think we built a really nice team. My co-founder Radhika was a great systems level thinker. She really brought structure to the company when we were just a bunch of ideas floating around. And then, of course, my colleague Div was great with sort of formalizing ops, formalizing sales, etc. Just really building these departments out. And today we have like several departments, all of them headed by some person or the other who's just great at what they do. But it wasn't straightforward. Very much a zigzag, circular, loopy, going backwards sometimes journey.
Super. So, you just mentioned two things that I got on to. One was that having the right set of mentors. And how did Abhay get the right set of mentors? And how does someone like you, have access to the right set of people who would be willing to invest in an idea that is, say, come from a teenager? And, we are usually dismissed. It's usually dismissed as being a premature idea and something that may not really blossom. So for someone who's like you, wanting to launch into this particular world, how are they supposed to have access, and who can they reach out to, where they will be actually entertained, their thoughts will be heard? So that was my question. That was one.
Yeah, I think most people, that's a great question. I think most people and mentors and investors are like, really look for something called founder market fit, which is that, why are you a compelling person to solve this problem, or why you're the best person to solve this specific problem? In my case, I had activism experience, right? So it wasn't that I saw this plant-based thing as a wave and I was like, okay, boom, going to make some money off this, jump in, make a plant-based milk product and launch it. So I think a lot of people saw that I was in this movement long before I'd ever thought of being in business in this movement, right? So that really helped with credibility, because it wasn't an opportunity. It was more of my life's work's manifestation, and Goodmylk was becoming that, right? So, and I think that passion is now sought after by investors or mentors, in that they will help I mean, I think most people will receive help, right? I think especially if you're younger, yes, you will be dismissed sometimes, but it is also equally likely that there are people who go, oh my God, this young person's doing this. They have the energy and they have the time, right? They are. It's a very powerful thing to be able to say, I could invest all of my 20s into this, which is when you can really go through a lot of pain without necessarily wanting your creature comforts or having the kind of responsibilities that people in the 30s might, right? So it's a very powerful thing to be young in that way. But equally important, I think, is passion for the mission. I think there are several companies out there now that launched plant-based products because they saw the opportunity, and they may not solve problems as efficiently as the people who launch products because they cared. I think because all businesses eventually become terrible businesses to run at some point, because you're going to go through a set of problems that seem insurmountable. And the people that make it through, I think, and I don't know if we've made it through yet, right? Long way to go, miles to go before we sleep. But the people that make it through are the ones that really care about the problem, because the ones who care about the opportunity will look at the next big opportunity and go, oh my God, I should be in that space, not this space. I think the people who stick to the boring, dirty, hard part of this are the ones who really care, and I think those people will always receive help. But for those looking for more formal resources, there are I'm sure FIAPO does a couple of programs for educating entrepreneurs. There's Humane Society International India, which does a cohort based thing where they help plant-based entrepreneurs. There's a lot of resources out there. Good Food Institute has a couple of resources. A lot of plant-based entrepreneurs write blogs. Their LinkedIn's are a great sort of example of how they scale their journey. Instagram is great, but also you could just call anybody. There's plenty of companies that I'm able to talk to every once in a while and just sort through their problems. I think most people want to give it forward because we've been given it forward by a lot of other people who helped us.
That's fabulous. I mean, there's so much to actually take from this, especially that line where you said that, as long as you remain true to the causes is when you feel like you're on the right track. Otherwise, there's always going to be something bigger, and then you want to jump on that bandwagon. So that's always going to be the case. Lastly, I think there is just one question, and it's a two-part question. One is, how does one bounce back from failure? Because I think when you choose to go down this road, you will be met with failure over and over and over again, and sometimes it forces a person to quit. And also about what is the advice that you would actually give to the other budding, blossoming vegan businesses? So about bouncing back from a challenge and the advice you give to other vegan businesses. That's my last question.
I'll try and remember that. I can process one thing in my head really well. So if I forget, you'll have to forgive me. But I think, a failure is proof that you're trying something new that hasn't been tried before. So it's a good thing, right? I think one of my friends said this, and it's a good quote. It was that, say you have X money, you have divided by the amount of money you're spending each day, you have maybe 100 days to run 100 new experiments and figure out which ones work. Chances are that some of them are going to work, right? And it's important to know which ones succeed as well and sort of double down on them. But if something fails, that's not a bad thing, because you now have tried something that nobody else has tried before, and then you're sort of figuring out that there's a boundary you can't cross, and that's not written in a rule book somewhere. I don't do XYZ thing, because every business is unique and it'll have its own challenges. Even in the plant-based space, what works for one business might not necessarily hold true to some other business. It's really a combination of who's running it, what systems do you have access to, what resources do you have access to, etc. Right? So I think failure is a very good thing. The other thing is, I think maybe something I'm getting used to, and something I read, I think as early as today, was that you have to be really okay with being uncomfortable as a founder/CEO, because the good aspects of the business are not going to come to you as often as the bad stuff, because the good easy parts are going to be handled by your team members. Only when things are truly on fire will they come to you. There's a net where all the good news is filtered out, and you're constantly just subjected to bad news often, and that's okay, right? Because you're the person that is needed there at that point of time to solve that problem. I think an opportunity for massive growth. Imagine, if you go through all this pain and suffering in your 20s. Imagine how badass you'll be at 40, right? And that's a thought that inspires me too. But outside of that, it's a good thing if problems are coming to you, because if problems are not coming to you, then there's a level of denialism or fear in your company that people aren't pushing up problems to you. So, I think it is definitely true that entrepreneurship is super hard, super difficult emotionally to go through. Therapy helps, mentors help, having a good support system helps, but at the end of it, you are truly going to be uncomfortable every day, or until your business has scaled up to a big extent. And even then there may be new challenges, right? So I can only attest to the amount of scale we've achieved so far, but I don't know what it is going to be for the next 10x, 100x, right? So I think you have to just accept that it's going to be tough. And I don't think there have been many businesses where the journey was easy. So that's one thing. I think the other thing you asked was any tips I might have or advice. I think, just try and. I think what I've learned is that a lot of what is beneficial to the movement is actually beneficial to the business too. I think modern consumers are very aware about how businesses operate, etc. So, rather than lying, I think it's okay to be vulnerable. Let's say, look, we're struggling with this one aspect. Give us, we're sorry, but give us some time to fix it, right? So I think just being authentic, accepting the humanity of it all, accepting that it's going to be a difficult experience, I think is just going to help make it easier. Because I think half the battle is in our heads, right? I think I just realized that Goodmylk has only been as big as I thought it could be. Realistically, if I didn't think we'd be crossing, 1 CR in revenue a while ago, I don't think we truly would have done that. And even now it's a bad, right? I tell myself these defeatist things are like, oh my God, you're never going to be 1,000 crore company or a 10,000 crore company, but it's so important to sort of not let you talk to yourself in a bad way, and just really believe that it's possible, because most solutions will come. So it's not a matter of being a genius or anything. It's just a matter of giving it enough time and enough persistence. I think a lot of problems can be solved that way. So I'd say maybe that's the little bit of advice I have on that.
Thank you so much for that, Abhay. We've got so many questions today. Rest assured that we will take them up tomorrow. We've got a whole day waiting. We've got so many sessions packed for you. So thank you so much yet again, Abhay.